Okay, so I'm going to do a little flip through of my latest sketchbook, which is a little tiny, see it's smaller than my hand, tiny little Fabriano Venezia sketchbook. It's a portrait, mostly a portrait sketchbook. There's a few other things in it, but mostly it's watercolour portraits that I've just finished today. There's going to be a bit of noise in the background because my neighbours are having an extension built and I've waited all day for them to stop drilling, but they're still making a bit of noise, so apologies for that, but there's not very much I can do about it other than not do this, but they've mostly stopped. There's a bit of banging. So I'm really proud of this sketchbook, and the reason I'm proud of it is that when I started I didn't know very much about watercolour, and most of my watercolours are awful, and by the time I finished it today they're just much better. I think you'll see I've improved a lot just by practice. So I started on the 26th of June last year and finished today, which is the 29th of January. There's the banging. So this was a sketchy portrait that I did last year. This one was quite good for the first one. Yeah, most of what I'm trying to do in most of the portraits is just layer the colours like I do with my Copics. But I didn't really know very much about what I was doing when I started. So that one was pretty good, but you'll see with the later ones that most of them aren't. And that was just a random picture of a sandwich. Yeah, so here's one that wasn't very good, where I'm layering colour, but yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing, especially when it comes to hair. And mostly I went over, you'll see lots of these ones, I went over them a lot with pencil to try and get some definition, because I wasn't getting any definition at all. So this one, the hair was just, I think, one colour, it was just a blur, so I went over and over it with colour pencil to try and get more sort of definition of hair. And again, this one, I think there's lots of pencil in there to just try and get something other than a massive colour. That was a drawing of this little rabbit that I bought on holiday that sits on my shelf. That one's probably the worst one in the book. Apologies to whoever that was on Sketchy. Yeah, I don't think I put that one on Sketchy because it was so awful. That one was a bit better, but with lots of colour pencil on it to make it look better. Yeah, I was really struggling to get anywhere with, I'm much better at hair now, I'm pleased to say. I was really struggling to get anything to look like anything. And I think at this point nearly gave up, I have to say. It was close to giving up. And then I did this one, which was so much better, I think. Though again, with a lot of colour pencil on it to make it better. But I think when I did this one, I suddenly understood a little bit about just adding water and dropping paint in water a bit, yeah, to get more soft edges. And yeah, so suddenly at this point I began to understand a bit more about how watercolour works. And I think it shows a bit in the portraits that came later. And then at this point I started to fall in love with Yuko Shimitsu's work. I began to mess around with brush and ink, and I'm madly in love with Yuko Shimitsu's work now. So if you don't know her work, go and look her up and go do her Skillshare class and buy anything that has her work in it. Go and look at her work on Pinterest if you don't know who I'm talking about. I've got a Pinterest board full of her work, so you can go and look at my board if you don't know her work, and yeah, follow her on Instagram, and yeah, go look at what she does because it's beautiful. And yeah, I'm not going to say any more because her work is just glorious, and it's not like mine, it's glorious. But this one I kind of, this one I like because I kind of started to understand her strokes on that one, but I haven't practiced enough. That one's awful. Embarrassed. But yeah. And this one was the first one where I thought I was beginning to get it. was beginning to get watercolour a bit at that point, I think. And then that one I liked. This is beginning to understand. Also, this is partly a product of just having bought some beautiful paints. That was these paints, Greenleaf and Blueberry paints. Very expensive handmade paints, but they're so worth it. Yeah, these are all Greenleaf and Blueberry paints. They make such a difference because just the colours are really intense. Yeah, from that point on, the colours are really intense and they're beautiful. This, for those of you watching this who are in Sketchbook school, this was the day that Kathy Tenzo came to visit me from Seattle, and we spent a day, we spent an hour of that day in the gardens of Brighton Pavilion, drawing the pavilion. So that has very happy memories for me. It's October. And this is Inktober. I love that painting. That was the beginning of me really, I think, beginning to get the layering and the glazing and getting layers and layers of colour to work. It was really beginning to work at this point. So these are Inktober from here. And that one is the one where it really worked for the first time, I think. Totally. And Greenleaf and Blueberry paints, making it work. Just beautiful, beautiful paints. And yeah, for those of you on Sketchy, you'll recognise Rick. Rick, Muse of the Year for 2017. Yeah, everybody draws Rick. Another Inktober, yeah. And suddenly, at this point, I was just getting it. Watercolour was beginning to work for me. This is also an Inktober Sketchy. Sketchy has photos of things other than people on it. That one I didn't like, so I did it again. So, and I hated that one, so we'll ignore that one. Yeah, these are all sketchy portraits now, and yeah, and this is my watercolour style kind of beginning to develop as I began to make it work. It's my Copic style, but adapted for watercolour now, and it was starting to work. And then I was just figuring out how it works. But weirdly, I really don't like this one, but lots of people on Sketchy liked it. I don't like it at all. I don't understand how things that I really don't like other people do like. I don't know how that works, but that one I like. Rick again. Infamous Sketchy Muse. Obviously a Christmas one. This one I like. This is a Daniel Smith, this Goldie paint. This is a Daniel Smith luminescent paint. And all the rest of these are part of the Sketchy 30 Faces, 30 Days, January challenge. So they're all from this month. So I've been doing a lot more watercolour this month, because some of the challenges, daily challenges, are kind of focused on using watercolour, so I've been doing more of it. So, like this one, I would never ever have attempted a painting like this one, but it was one of the daily photos, so I did it. But yeah, it wouldn't have been one I would have chosen to do, because it's a bit too challenging for me. And that one I would never have chosen either, because the hair, that was so hard, and I didn't really get it right, but it's all part of the challenge. Nor that one. We're supposed to be trying to do soft edges, which I really am not good at, as you can see. This one I spilt my water jar all over the sketchbook and all over my laptop as well. But fortunately managed to rescue both. But yeah, my page wouldn't take any more water because I'd wrecked it. That's why it's so buckled. But it survived. And this is my very last page that I did this morning. So, and that's why I'm kind of really happy with this book, because the difference between, say, that and that is, yeah, I can look at those and see how much I've learned and how far I've come. It's just quite a long way in, I don't know, 6-7 months. I've improved a lot. So, once again, that's how much, or how far you can go with practice. So that's just what I haven't really done any other watercolours. There might be one or two in other books that I've done for sketchbook school courses, but not very much. There might be, yeah, I think there's maybe one in another sketchbook that I did for a course back in, I don't know, October, November, but definitely no more than one other watercolour. So that's really, yeah, that's really just daily, you know, just the practice, and you can see them almost improve day by day. So